Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to tell you how many hours you need to fast in order to lose weight. 12, 14, 16? Many people ask me about this. And it's interesting because a lot of people know about the benefits of intermittent fasting and think that actually the longer they go without eating, the better it will be. But physiology shows that there is a point where fasting helps, and in fact there is a point where it can actually hinder you. I'm going to explain this to you in detail. You're going to love this video. Stay until the end, you won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you if you've ever tried intermittent fasting as a weight loss strategy. Did you feel that it helped you? Did you get good results? Did it make your hunger worse? How was that experience for you? Write it for me down here in the comments. I would love to see your comment. If you can, go ahead and like the video. That really helps me out here on the channel. And if you know someone who likes fasting or is interested in starting, share this video with them. Let's work together to expand this chain of kindness. When we think about intermittent fasting, it's really interesting to understand a bit more about the concept of what intermittent actually means. It is characterized by a style of eating where you go several consecutive hours without eating, without consuming anything solid or caloric, even if it's a caloric liquid. So you can drink water, tea, unsweetened iced tea, unsweetened coffee, everything without sugar, as long as it doesn't have any caloric impact. And this period when you go without eating, these consecutive hours, is called the closed window. And from the moment you start eating something or drinking something that contains calories, the window is considered open, just so you understand a bit about how the terminology works. The first hours are when we don't have much metabolic impact, because from 0 to 4 hours, we're actually in an absorptive phase, an anabolic phase where you're absorbing nutrients and both glucose and insulin are elevated. And insulin is an anabolic hormone, as I mentioned to you. So it promotes the storage of calories, energy, and fat, and inhibits lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat. So here in this phase from 0 to 4 hours, postprandial, after a meal, you're not burning fat. You're using what you just ate. Now, after 4 to 10 hours, we have a transition period in which insulin actually starts to drop and the body begins the process of lipolysis, which is the release of fatty acids, in other words, fat oxidation, but it's still incipient. It's still a metabolic transition phase before you can enter the more optimized mode for fat burning. Before it starts burning fat, oxidizing fat consistently, the body has a primary metabolic pathway, which is to burn hepatic glycogen, the glycogen that's stored in the liver. So it's a reserve of energy that we keep in our liver to help regulate blood sugar levels. But this glycogen has an interesting characteristic. It binds water molecules to itself. So when a person starts using up more hepatic glycogen, the initial weight loss during fasting is significant, not just because of the fat that's being oxidized, but mainly because of the loss of fluid. So, in the early stages of fasting, people report that swoosh effect, where you lose glycogen, but also a lot of fluid, so you really dry out in that sense. After this adaptation period, that's when the body enters a real metabolic shift. Between 10 and 14 hours after the last meal, we start to see greater activation of lipolysis as insulin levels drop, as I explained to you. And then glucagon increases and the body accesses stored fat reserves more easily, increasing oxidation, actual lipolysis, and the mobilization of this body fat. You start to become less dependent on immediate glucose and use fat more as an energy substrate. Then, a little later, between 14 and 18 hours, which is already a more advanced fast, we start to enter a state of metabolic flexibility. At this stage, there is an improvement in the system that alternates between fat oxidation and sugar utilization. And it activates a pathway called AMPK, which signals an increase in fat oxidation. So it's as if the body is saying, really prioritize burning fat. Let's use up these stores. And something else very interesting comes into play here, which is autophagy. Although autophagy starts to be signaled, we know that deep autophagy, the real cellular cleaning, when the body consumes cells that are no longer functioning well and shouldn't remain alive, usually requires longer fasts. But starting from 14, 16, 18 hours, you begin to have a certain level of activation of this autophagy, this cleaning, this cellular renewal. What really helps at this point is the increased insulin sensitivity, the improvement of these glycemic markers in our body, and the enhancement of this metabolic aspect, which obviously will also complementarily aid in the weight loss process. Because studies show that after 12 hours, you already start to see a very interesting expression of lipolysis, the signaling of body fat burning. And this gradually increases, right? The longer you spend fasting, obviously, the more signaling ends up happening in your body. But there's an interesting point because many people think, so the longer the fast, the better? Not always, because think about people who are sometimes going through situations like war or severe food deprivation. These individuals may end up spending many hours without eating, often under extremely stressful conditions. And we think about this when we consider the evolutionary strategy. Nowadays, we only talk about this in extreme cases. But our bodies were programmed at a time when there were no supermarkets, no little shops to buy food, no fast food, nothing like that. So our bodies developed a mechanism where if you go many, many hours without eating, your cortisol increases because your body understands that you're in fight or flight mode, a real danger, and this reduces your basal metabolic rate. So, excessive fasting without supervision or proper criteria can cause a slowdown in the basal metabolic rate, and many people don't know this. Besides that, extreme fasting, going many hours in a row, 24, 36 hours, can indeed lead to proteolysis when the fasting is poorly structured. The body starts to use amino acids from your own muscle mass to produce glucose. So you can actually worsen your metabolism because you use muscle as an energy source. Therefore, if you do more extreme fasts, ideally, you should always have medical and nutritional supervision and focus on strength training exercises to maintain your lean mass, to support that muscle in your body. So, how many hours can actually help you in the weight loss process? Studies often mention an interval of 12, 13, or 14 hours per day, which provides real benefits and is a sustainable fast. Because, just imagine, if you stop eating at 8 in the evening, you can eat again at 8 in the morning or 10 in the morning. So, you can still have most of your meals throughout the day while maintaining a balanced and sustainable approach to your eating routine. Now, for more extreme fasts, like 16 hours or more, ideally you should talk to your healthcare professional and already be adapted to it, right? No one is going to start a fast today with an 18 or 24-hour fast. That could end up having repercussions for your health. And the most important thing is to remember that fasting works well when done consistently. There's no point in doing a 12-hour fast just once a week and expecting to see dramatic results. Fasting isn't a miracle. It improves your metabolic environment. If you can cut out a meal or skip a meal, you end up reducing your calorie intake at that time, so that also helps with weight loss. Now, on the other hand, think about it with me. There's no point in doing a 12, 13, or 14-hour fast if you eat 4,000 calories during your eating window. So, having a balanced diet, eating foods with protein and fiber to reduce insulin spikes is also important when you break your fast, so that after you start eating again, your insulin is released more gradually. Because when you eat, you will secrete insulin as usual. So ideally, you want to have a more optimized secretion and avoid insulin spikes when you break your fast. I say this because there are people who say, I'm going to fast, but I'll break it with snacks, fast food, pizza, hamburgers, French fries. Then it's no use, even if you fast for a few hours, if you still consume excessive amounts of high-calorie or ultra-processed foods without creating a calorie deficit, because you probably won't experience the weight loss benefits normally associated with fasting. Another important point is to remember that fasting is from caloric food. I've said this before, but it's worth emphasizing that fasting is not a dry fast. You need to stay hydrated. You should hydrate throughout the day. This is very important for your health because when your glycogen decreases, as I've already mentioned, you lose water and electrolytes. So drinking water is essential to avoid headaches, dizziness, and discomfort that many people report during fasting. It can be water with a slice of lemon, it can be tea, of course, even black tea, but always without sugar, iced tea, drinks without sugar, and without sweeteners so you don't trigger an insulin response either. Let me know down below if you already knew about this effective fasting, if you've tried it or not. And just to be clear, not everyone needs to use fasting as a weight loss strategy, okay? For some people, it works really well, but there are people who just can't adapt at all. Fasting should not be done by people who have binge eating disorder, any kind of pre-existing health problem, or who are unsure about how to organize their diet. Always talk to your doctor or your nutritionist. Pregnant and breastfeeding women should not fast without specific guidance from the healthcare professional who is following them. So tell me if you've ever tried fasting, if you're thinking about doing it, if you got results or not. I would love to see your comment. Like the video to help me out and share it with anyone you think might enjoy it. Let's spread this chain of kindness. That's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.